What people really want to hear when they come to me for a reading, they want to know and they want to be sure that dead is not dead, and that they can still see them and hear them and be a part of their lives.
No reason to act surprised. I am the Shinigami Ryuk. Shinigami? Well, I'm not surprised. In fact, Ryuk, I've been waiting for you.
Tell her you're here to fill out a signature card for a new account.
Can I help you?
Yes, I'm here to fill out a signature card for a new account.
And do you know your account number?
926-31043.
926-31043.
31043. Rita Miller.
Who?
What?
Tell her Rita Miller.
Rita Miller.
Didn't they have you sign a card when you opened the account?
Tell her Carl Bruner opened it for you by phone and asked you to come in today.
So you see, Carl Bruner, he opened it for me by phone, that account, and now he's asked me to come in today.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. Just sign this card on the bottom line, please.
Light?
It'll be all right. Answer it. What is it?
I thought you'd like some apples. The neighbors brought them over for us. Why on earth is it so dark in your room? You ruined your eyesight.
What's going on? Mom can't see him? You are the only one who's able to see me. And of course, my voice can only be heard by you.
What are you doing? What do you think you're doing to me?
Hey, look, if you think I come all the way down here for my health, you're out of your mind.
Sam's dead, okay? He's dead.
Tell her I love her.
He says he loves you.
Sam would never say that.
Ditto. Tell her ditto.
That was ditto. Ditto.
Another name I hear too is Mike.
Oh, my son.
He's showing me his crossing. Something happened in his lungs, and it's as if he's trying to say at the end he couldn't breathe. Who lost this child that is trying to tell me that they're here?
I did.
Oh, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. They're showing me that when she left for that side, she was young. I don't think she was even 5 years old. How old was she?
She was 2.
She's trying to make sure you understand that it was her time to go. And there was nothing you did, and there was no choice that you made, and you are not responsible, and she does not want you to feel guilty.
I've heard of mediums in the past, and I've seen some on TV, but I never believed that it was real.
And the cancer, was it up in this part of her body?
Yes.
Because here is where she showed me the cancer's all here.
My sister passed away of breast cancer, and she had mentioned early on that she's seen something or felt something within the chest.
Right now, she's just counting on you to send her love, tell everybody you've heard from her, and the suffering is over.
All right.
One other thing, whose name starts with an L? She's telling me she's with her, Louise.
The chances of her knowing or even coming close to this person, Louise, which is my cousin. My sister and my cousin were extremely close. That was an experience that I'll never forget, for sure.
One other name she mentions is May, M-A-E, is there.
Conchetta mentioned the name May, and she actually spelled it out, M-A-E. And at the time, I had no idea of who she could possibly be talking about. When I went home, I talked to my wife about my experience, and she indicated her stepmother had recently passed away within the last 12 months, and her middle name was in fact May, M-A-E, and her first name was Annie. And I wanted not to believe. I wanted badly not to believe, but as a result, I just could not deny that she was right on.
to you or bring you communication from your dear little girl through a medium, because that practice has been forbidden. So anybody engaging in that practice is not a good or godly spirit. So get this. So they say to me, then how did that spirit know about the pink teddy bear with the locket in the bottom drawer of my bureau? And they told, my little girl thanked me for that teddy bear, and I never had the chance to give it to her because she died before I could give it to her. Then I know this is real. And I say to them, I know this is horrible. This is how despicable these demons are. They take glee in making you suffer. They know about the pink teddy bear because they saw you buy it. They know where you put it. They know about the locket. They know about the inscription on the back. I said, they are deceiving you.
Why are you doing this to me? You hear me? Why are you doing this to me? I can't. I just can't.
What a mate, tell her she's wearing the shirt that I spilled the margarita on and the earrings that
Oh, if Sam says to tell you you're wearing the shirt that you spilled the margarita on and the earrings he gave you for Christmas. Don't you see I'm not a fake? Not about this.
You came up with names a lot of times.
Yeah, well, that's them. They came up with names. I get the credit for it, but they're really the ones who are so amazing.
Oh, you're amazing.
That makes me very happy. But if you walk away with anything today, I don't want you to walk away with saying, I'm amazing. I want you to walk away saying, my family's not dead. And someday we'll all be together again. That's what I want you to walk away with.
Oh, thank you.
So I got the evening off, and I went out. We went out and had dinner. He told me, "Hey, I got something fantastic to tell you." He said, "I am affiliated with people that speak with the spirits of the dead. How would you like to talk to the spirit of your dead mother?" And I was shocked. I was shocked. He said, "You wouldn't be afraid of talking to the spirit of your dead mother, would you?" Well, I said, I'll tell you what, I would have to give that some thought, because it's something I never thought about before in my life.
Most of us probably haven't. A little afraid of something like that.
Well, he says, you know, it's written all over your face. You're afraid of going to a seance. But he says, I know you. He says, you're going to come. And then he started telling me how brave I was. He says, you're not the same man. You've changed. You're chicken. That's all I needed to hear. I said, when do we go to a seance?
Health place?
No.
Okay. I'm not saying that's where you should work, but you might want to go back to school. Have you thought of that?
Yes.
I feel you need to go back to school. And who is Catherine or Anne? Who is Catherine?
That was a friend of mine.
Did she pass away?
Yes.
At a young age?
Yes.
Okay, so she didn't grow to be an old person.
No.
Her spirit is with you. She wants you to know she knows how much you miss her. And you did something recently that reminded you of her. You either found something that she gave you, or you did something recently, saw a picture. What did you do? She's telling me you just did something that reminded you of her.
I've been thinking about her sister a lot. She was murdered when she was 14, and we'd all thought that Ted Bundy had done it, and that was the current, that was what everyone thought until they found the
real guy, right?
Yeah, and he's in prison right now.
Right. She wants her family to know she's at peace. See, there is a spirit world, everybody, and you know, you're not going to really know till you get over there, but I promise you, there's a spirit world. And I feel that since they found the murderer, she is at peace. And they need to know this. And she's telling me about William.
That was the man that killed her.
Yeah, she's saying that William will get his. What goes around comes around. William will get his. And it's there's a sign. She comes as a sign. Do you see signs and you think, oh, that's her? Did she give you an owl or a bird? Did she give you an owl or a bird?
I was in the hospital once when we were 12, and she came to visit me, and I still have a little...
A bird she gave you?
No, it was a little booklet that she made so people could sign it, and she drew an owl on the front of it.
Okay, that is her sign to you. That she wants you to know that she watches over you.
How did that spirit know?
Anyway, your friend wants you to know that she's at peace, and I gotta go. So thank you for, I'm sorry I didn't read for other people, but you guys, thank you so much for trusting me. And just know your friend is at peace. Tell her family.
What do you think?
The spirits know.
What do you think?
I'm in shock. I mean, I felt Kathy around me a lot, and there's a song that makes me think of her every time, and I drive by her house, and, you know, I miss her. We were best friends until she disappeared one day hitchhiking on Aurora.
The one thing I can promise you is when it is your time, many years from now, to go to the spirit world, when they talk about the white light and seeing our loved ones again, she'll be there waiting for you. Thank you so much.
Shar, thank you.
Thank you.
If you're interested in a reading from Shar, she's doing a small group reading tonight at the downtown Seattle Marriott starting at 6:30 p.m.
And it amazes me because all of a sudden, only Bill would have known that. It's amazing. Nope. The spirits that were around Bill that are familiar with him intimately knew that too. And now that demon is communicating back to the demon that's in the psychic. It's a demon hotline. Not a psychic hotline. You have two demons communicating back with each other what the other person is doing.
Their belief, popular belief of necromancy, is to conjure the spirits of the dead.
So that you can speak with someone who has died.
Right.
Like the seance that you originally went to was the practice of necromancy.
Yeah. Now, the priest says that the super deception is brought about in only one way. Through the deceptive belief that man has an immortal soul that lives on after death. And he said that constitutes idolatry through necromancy. So he says there are hundreds of millions of Christians that are practicing idolatry. What do you think? They're glorifying God. See?
Because they believe that the soul is immortal. Yeah. They may not be talking to the supposed spirits of the dead.
Oh, yeah. Contrary to popular belief, necromancy does not consist of conjuring the spirits of the dead. The reason being that man is totally mortal and does not possess an immortal soul. So who are they talking to? He says the friendly demon spirits that have always found over the centuries great delight in impersonating in apparitions departed loved ones and persons of great renown. Necromancy is in reality a belief, a religious belief. People believe that the dead have entered into a higher state of existence than they had when they were alive. Also that they are in a position and have the capacity to help the living here on earth. See? Then he said, he says this is where things get really interesting. He said, according to the great master, a person does not have to supposedly call upon the spirits of the dead to receive help, you see, to be involved in necromancy. All he needs to do is to believe in life after death. Because he said, necromancy is the belief that man is human, as a human being, as an immortal soul. So anybody that believes that man has an immortal soul is involved in necromancy. It's that simple. By people believing that they are either talking to the saints, see, the spirits of the dead, dead saints, or a dead relative, or a dead person of some type. When people believe in this business, they are actually opening themselves to be completely deceived by demon spirits, because it gives the demon spirits an opportunity to impersonate the dead, see, and for people to believe their lies. And the priest says that thrills first of all, it says it brings the great master the respect and the reverence that is due to his great name. And it makes all the other spirits exceedingly happy because they are the ones that have worked to lead people to believe in life after death. See? And they rejoice.
Your mother is with other people, lots of them, tells me that she's so proud of you. She said something about a car. Did you just get a car? Or... You did. She said, good luck with the car, baby. She saw you there. She's telling me she's in the car. She says something about it having something in it. I'm not quite sure. Do you have something of your mother's in the car that you keep there? Oh, good. That's why she's saying it then, because she says, I see the car, see what you keep in there. And she also says to tell you that you, when you were born, I don't know if you were the first girl or the
twin.
Oh, then you came out first? That's why. So you have a twin sister?
Yes.
And you were the first one to come out?
Yes.
That's why she's saying it. Anyway, she's telling me she can breathe again. She couldn't breathe at the end. And the fact is that really tortured you, that you could see her struggling like that. And she's saying, tell my daughter that it's paradise. The paradise of God is beautiful. And she's with parents of hers that she loves very, very much. And that you would be happy to know that they're all together. They're all together. And you've kept a box of pretty pieces of jewelry that belong to her that she's really glad that you've kept. And she keeps telling me you're going to be all right, darling. You're a good girl, and you're going to be all right. And that she loves you all. Okay, sweetheart? Thank you, babe. You're so pretty. Pretty thing. Wow. Your mother-in-law has a sense of humor. Did she, or was she interested in tea leaves or tarot cards?
She drank a lot of tea.
Okay. I feel like that's what she's showing me. But she's teasing about it. Like, it was like, I want to say she was addicted.
When she passed, we started cleaning out the closets. We found boxes and boxes of tea bags, Lipton tea.
Okay, then that's what it is. See, I have no idea what any of this means.
And we were laughing about it.
Oh,
Her granddaughters and I, we were hysterical.
Okay, that's what it is, honey. She has a sense of humor, and she's laughing as she tells me. And she said that it would be something that would identify her, so obviously it does, and that turns me on. Did you lose your daughter, love? Your daughter?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how to put this in any other words except to say, I love you so much, my father. I love you so much, my beloved parents. But this was a daddy's girl. There's no question. She was a daddy's girl. And you took care of her every need, every time. Thank you, she's saying. Thank you. I remember. I remember. You're always asking, do you know how much I love you? Do you know how much I love you? Daddy loves you. She says, Daddy, I know. I know. And she keeps telling me to answer that question for you, because when you're alone, you ask her all the time. She tells me that you just recently moved some photographs around. She saw you moving some photographs. She saw you standing there, and you were standing there lingering, looking at the pictures. It was of great joy to her because she was speaking to you in your subconscious. The two of you are wonderful parents. Please remember that always. There was nothing more you could have done. They want you to know that. She also says that there's something about it looks like a cruise. Are you both going on a cruise, or are you doing something by the boats, or?
Yeah, we have a family cruise every 5 years.
Okay.
And we didn't want to go this year because of the car, and she wants us to go.
Oh my God. No, she wants you to go. Please. She knows that. She mentions the cruise. It's very important that I tell you to go. She wants you to know that she's with you. And she's very proud of her friends and her family, all of you. Please says to tell her mother, Mom, there's pieces of jewelry you kept of hers that she knows that you treasure. I feel like when she shows this to me, it's either in your pocketbook or you have something here with you that you brought, and she says it's in there. Tell my mother I know. I saw her put it in there. Do you know what she's talking about?
I have her jewelry and something, her cat.
In your pocketbook?
Yeah.
Now, very good. Please tell you no, she knows you put it in there, and you said, if this woman tells me this is in here, I'll believe it. If she doesn't tell me, I won't believe her. So, Mom, I'm supposed to tell you, don't believe me, believe your daughter, because that's more important.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir, I assure you. All right, there's somebody trying to tell me something here about a boy that committed suicide. Who is it? Oh, God, they want me not to let you leave. Somebody's telling me something about somebody. They think they committed suicide. It was an accident, and that, or they tell me they're sorry about it. It's real strong, and I'm standing over here. Do you know who it is?
My father took his life.
Your father took his own life? It's very possible it's him, honey. I'm sorry. That's why I'm standing right here, and they're trying to apologize.
Is he in heaven?
Oh, yes, he is, darling. Don't worry, sweetheart. That's what it is. He knows you're worried about this. But I know that it's very important that I tell you that he is in the light of God and completely at peace. And that is that. I know you have. That's why he doesn't want you to leave here without me telling you. Okay, sweetheart? So don't worry, Bubby. Okay, all right. All right, baby. You're going to be all right, sweetheart. It's going to be all right. He's really in heaven. Don't worry about a thing. All right?
So one Saturday evening, we were in the place. It was the very first time. Very beautiful. Played the medium. Was a lady. She had a gorgeous new home in Montreal. And there were about 20 invited guests there, which I was one of them. And she communicated with the spirits for different people there, and telling them what the spirit said. And then there was one lady that had been talking almost continually before the seance started, and she didn't believe in the dead appearing and all of this and all that, and she said, well, I would have to see my dead sister, she says, to believe it. So while the seance was going, one man said, I would like to talk to my friend that died 6 months ago, but I don't want him to appear. Just want to talk to him, because he says, I don't trust you talking to my friend for me. So the medium says, let me inquire of the spirit. Yeah, the spirit will talk with you. And that big masculine voice was heard in the place. It says, hi, Frank. It's nice of you to ask for me to talk with you. And they had a little chat. And after it was over, Frank says, this is the greatest thing on earth, to be able to talk with the spirits of the dead. Then the medium said, we have a very special surprise tonight for you people. A spirit will manifest itself openly here in a few minutes. And it's like a big gust of wind hit the building. And right through the wall. Now the lights weren't terribly bright, but they were like living room lights. A couple of floor lamps and maybe some of these. And that translucent being seemed to come right out of the wall.
How did you feel right at that moment?
It's almost like my heart stopped a little bit. Very weird feeling. So it was a lady in a beautiful evening gown, floor length. And she said to Mary, my dear sister, you are so wonderful to have asked for me. And Mary fainted and fell right off her chair on the floor. And a couple of guys jumped up and picked her up, and spirit gone. And that was the beginning of it.
That's how you got into it?
Yeah, that's the way I got into it.
The voice would change, and it would be just like your Uncle Bob, who's been dead 10 years, and you would go, oh, that's my Uncle Bob, and he would speak, give you a message, that kind of thing. To be honest, that scared me. I only went to a few of those, but my mother certainly went to more, because she was developing towards becoming a medium. She was going to all the development classes, and she was coming on leaps and bounds. But what started to happen was she could no longer control the spirit guides. They were now choosing when to come through her. She could be, I was with her a few times at the shops, walking along the street, and the spirits would come through her, take control when she didn't want to, and take over. Really, they did it to such an extent where her life was not her own anymore. At this point, she wanted out, because there was so many spirit voices. They all wanted to give messages to the neighbours, to passers-by, she just, it was getting to the point where she didn't know her own thoughts anymore, because they were always talking through her. So she tried to get help. My mother had psychic experiences really since she was a child, and through her teens and adult life, but she tended to ignore it. She wasn't too interested then. Obviously she met my dad, and they had me, so it wasn't till in later years she decided to pursue it and develop it further. Really, when I was about a pre-teen, I also had psychic experiences as a child too, and was very interested in it as well. Cousins that were involved in spiritualism. In fact, an uncle was a head of a spiritualist church in Ayrshire. It was a normal childhood most of the time. Really, my dad wasn't interested at all in it, so my mother and I didn't really go into it too deeply. Eventually they divorced, and really then I suppose she just plunged into it in a deeper way. But certainly as a child, there were several psychic experiences, dreams, that kind of a thing that my mother and I had. So throughout my childhood there were a few, but it didn't develop until later childhood. There weren't too many scary things happening yet. That wasn't till much later as a child. It was more, you know, I was fascinated with the supernatural. I loved ghost stories, watching supernatural programs on the TV, ESP, these kind of things. It wasn't till later on that the frightening stuff began to happen. By that point we were both really well and truly involved. As a pre-teen, my mother had already joined a spiritualist church, and I joined it too, and we went every week, a couple of times a week. So by then we were already involved in psychic development classes, mediumship training, seances, that kind of thing. We were already involved in seeking mediums for messages from dead relatives, and really developing in it. We were interested in astral projection, astrology, meditation, yoga. You know, we were becoming deeply involved. So when the odd frightening thing happened, I guess we thought, well, it's just a hazard of the job. You're dealing with spirits, you're bound to get a few negative spirits. We didn't really question too deeply straight away. We had communication with spirit guides. Spirit guides tended to be, the way it would be described would be perhaps an Indian chief or some spirit that had just evolved high up in the spirit world, that had come, had chosen us and had come to be our guide, give us advice, develop our psychic abilities, really be with us all of the time. They would also help channel apparent dead relatives. That's what they explained it to us, whether it was our great-gran, our sister, great-uncle, whoever, channel them through and communicate with them. But yeah, sometimes it would be the spirit guides giving her the information, other times it would be the relatives themselves. I was more encouraged to take up the psychic art, which was, I didn't get too involved in it, though I started it and became quite frightening, so I didn't pursue it. But that was where I was encouraged to let a spirit guide take over my hand, draw the psychic art, draw the picture, the portrait of the spirit guide, or even the dead relatives. So of course, if I was to give that portrait to a relative, they would think, oh yeah, that's my dead granny, that just looks like her, and it would make them think that the grandmother had come through to them. As I say, I started doing that, and I started doing Kirlian photography, which is photographing spirits with infrared film. But ectoplasm would start to form, and really I got quite afraid of that, and I just didn't want to pursue it. I thought I would go back to it in a few years, but I didn't want to pursue it any further. My mother was much more involved than I was. I was a pre-teen, so I was more involved in going out with friends and that kind of thing, but she delved right into it. She would allow spirit guides to take over her hand, and she would write screeds and screeds and pages of so-called sacred writings. A good friend at the time, she was a Catholic girl, and she told me the Bible said you shouldn't do that. And I asked her, well, why? But she didn't really know why. She just said you shouldn't do it. But the spiritualists just assumed, well, Christians are kind of narrow-minded. The Bible, you know, they didn't really believe in it. And some Christian spiritualists even said, well, they sometimes spoke to Jesus, that he was just a psychic, he was just a medium, and they sometimes channeled through Jesus, and you know, it was all kind of mixed up. So at that point, I thought the spirit guides were truly who they claimed to be, and the dead relatives were truly who they claimed to be. As I say, if a poltergeist activity did occur, spiritualists would explain that in the sense of, well, sometimes you do get a mischievous spirit that manages to get through and that kind of thing.
Hi guys, happy Halloween. We're going to try this again. Didn't work out too well last time. I'm a bit like this. If you didn't see what happened last time, I'll annotatify it up there somewhere. 1, 2, 3. I didn't swear. I don't know. I'm tempted to run out the garden. I really can't do anything with that anyway. Looking at the noises going on. Alright, that's pretty much garden time. The power of Christ compels ye. Yeah, that's kind of... I'm using my Ouija board to protect myself. The power of Christ compels ye. That's terrible. Garden time. That's me knocking. Scared the crap out of me when that glass broke. Can I come in? The EMF meter as well, that'd be interesting to see what happens with that. Ooh. Obviously not done. I wonder which way it was moving it to. Where's the board? Oh, that would have been a no from what I was saying.
Just left. I'll check downstairs.
Call.
Sunday the 19th of July. I'm in my greenhouse now, it's just great.
Most mediums and spiritualists and psychics that we knew were lovely, lovely people, genuine people, kind people. I think that's why a lot of them were attracted to that, because they felt they could help others, they could bring comfort to people, guidance, direction, you know, predictions about their future, prophecies, they could help people. Yeah. So it seemed a lovely religion to be in. It seemed, you know, helpful and everything like that. Yeah. There would be psychic premonitions and dreams, even about what would happen on the news next week, that kind of thing, that would all be very accurate and come true. There would be messages for people about their deceased relatives where you wouldn't think it was fake or a charlatan was involved, because the information would be so accurate. Names, dates, places, descriptions of the deceased person, their personality, phrases they might use a lot. You know, you wouldn't think it was fake at all. And we started to also, round about this time, heard rumours of lots of other psychics who were going through the same thing, even mediums who were trained, who were having this problem or having poltergeist activity in their house, and they weren't able to cleanse it or to control it. So that we started to get disillusioned with it then. So we thought, why now have our spirit guides turned against us? They attacked my mother, they threw her about the house. I was talking about shopping. Several times she was picked up and thrown over cars, over the bonnets of cars, that type of thing. The dead relatives, like apparently my grandmother and that kind of thing, had always been kind and given advice. Sadly, they turned against us and would shout obscenities at us. So it was confusing as to why is this happening, and is there another power actually behind? They're not really our relatives after all, or our spirit guides after all. Really, because of what was happening in the house, my mother was losing control, the spirit guides were harassing her so much. Sometimes they would force her into a trance. Once the kitchen went on fire and she didn't realise it happened. The whole kitchen was up in flames because they had took her away in a trance, and she didn't know, she just didn't know what was happening. So that's what made me question it. I stopped going to the spiritualist church then, although I actually still believed in it because it's all I ever knew. Eventually I went to university. I was in second year studying psychology, and a lady, a Christian, came alongside me. We became friends, and by this point my mother was taken and put into the psychiatric ward because the spirit guides were telling her to kill neighbours and kill people. So the police were getting complaints about my mum, the doctor had complaints about my mum. She felt she had to do it because the spirit guides were telling her to do it. So, but then it was obvious our mind was so badly affected. So I told Susan this, and she surprised me by saying that Jesus could help with this. Well, I hadn't read the Bible before, so I wasn't very sure at first whether or not to believe her. But she explained that she went to a Pentecostal church where some of the members had been involved in spiritualism before, or psychic phenomena before, and they had had horrible experiences too, whether poltergeists or similar experiences. But once they became a Christian and asked Jesus into their heart, Jesus had cleansed their house where mediums before had failed to cleanse their house. So that was beginning to make sense to me. The more she said Jesus could cleanse your house, well, my mother's house was still haunted, my flat still was not so clear. So I went along because a prophet was there, but obviously I heard the gospel, and I heard about Jesus, and for the first time I thought, gosh, you know, this could be real, and I hadn't really considered before that it was real. The presence of God was there and touched me for the first time. Well, that night I went home, and I hadn't really looked at a Bible before, but strangely enough, that day before we went to the church, I had a Bible ready to take to a charity shop. So it was sitting at the front door, but as soon as I got in, I opened the Bible. And I was starting to get a bit confused, because I thought, well, maybe Jesus is just a psychic. Maybe it's all just psychic phenomena. You know, is he really the Son of God? I was kind of a bit frightened as well that night with the spirits, because I sensed they weren't pleased I had been there to the Christian church. So I prayed, and I asked God, if Jesus is real and if he is the Saviour, will you please show me what to do and what should I do about spiritualism? I had a verse that was basically get out of spiritualism, which really did give me a fright, because I suddenly realised what I had been involved in. And over the next couple of days, a few more scriptures came to light and really explained it all to me. Deuteronomy chapter 18 verse 10, let no one be found among you who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or a spiritist, or who consults the dead. And it goes on to say these things are an abomination to God. So I got a fright reading that. And then 2 Corinthians chapter 11. For such men are false prophets, and no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. It is not surprising then if his servants masquerade as servants of righteousness. And I realised the spirit guides were not benevolent spirits, and the so-called dead relatives were not our dead relatives, because they did turn against us. They became evil, and it made sense. Well, no wonder they suddenly turned against us and attacked us, because spirits can impersonate any person who ever lived. They were masquerading as our relatives and pretending to be them. Just, they were imposters, basically. Everything involved in the occult, I burned it, or destroyed it in other ways, and just repented of it. Obviously needed to ask Christ to forgive me for that, cleanse me for that, have deliverance ministry for it, just have the whole past wiped out. It was easy to throw everything out and destroy everything, because when you suddenly realise these spirits are demons and evil spirits, you don't want anything to do with it. So it was easy to clear everything out, but the thought processes, the memories, the deliverance was more of a process, and that doesn't happen overnight. But with Christ you do walk through that, and he does lead you through that. If anyone has dabbled in these things, you really do need specific prayer for that to be totally set free from it. Absolutely. I think it'd be quite difficult to continue your Christian life without having that all dealt with and totally be set free from it, to really be able to grow and mature as a Christian.
Mike Mandel is a Canadian entertainer and lecturer. For many years he was involved in various aspects of the occult, including spirit mediumship. Dozens of entities would speak through him on an ongoing basis.
I became involved in what is now known as channeling in the late 1960s.
All right. Greetings, dear ones.
Yes, hello, dear.
May the peace of the Great Spirit be with you always. So let us begin with the discussion.
It was a spontaneous experience. We had been trying astral travel and a group of other techniques to let our spirits leave our bodies, to develop clairvoyant abilities, and so on. And when I say we, I mean a small group of us that had polarized together around an occult worldview. By trying these different techniques, I inadvertently opened myself up, and various entities began speaking through me. initially speaking in my head, and then eventually taking over to such a degree they were using my vocal cords and speaking through me to our friends.
Mike could literally be talking to you as I'm talking to you now, and instantly, in a moment, change and be taken over, and someone else would be talking, and his voice would literally stop being Mike and all of a sudden be somebody else.
Initially, it seemed to take them quite a bit of effort to take control of me. And it was more or less a voluntary thing. But as time passed, I realized that it was getting much, much easier for them to slip in and out. We used to call it someone popping in. We'd say, oh, so-and-so just popped in when you were gone. And they would appear sometimes for hours, sometimes for just a few minutes. And then we realized eventually that they were able to go in and out as they pleased by the end of things. And we asked one of the entities, someone asked on my behalf and said, why is it that you can get in and out of Mike's personality so readily? And they said something to the effect of, all human beings have a door that will keep other spirit beings out. And in most people's cases, the door is locked and barred and stapled shut and roped shut and sealed. And they said in my case, it was virtually hanging off the hinges.
The first time I ever talked to Tobias was on an airplane in 1997, and I wasn't particularly spiritual or metaphysical. I was in the business world at the time, and Tobias came in on this plane flight and started talking, and hasn't stopped since. But initially, it was just me talking to Tobias. I hadn't even told Linda about it.
And how long did it take you before you broke it to Linda that this
It was about a year.
So you kept it to yourself for a year?
Yeah.
I received what felt like, what I experienced to be a telepathic contact from Bashar and his people. In that moment of the telepathic contact, a memory actually came back of having made an agreement somewhere prior to this life to do this.
I grew up in a Roman Catholic family of Sicilian immigrants. Most of them, even today, after I've been channeling Joseph for 15 years, don't know what I do. They have some idea, because I don't talk about it to them, and they don't ask me. They know I do something weird.
I was very lucky. I had a lot of support. My friends were very accepting. And that's one thing that I've always been really open about. I didn't really hide it, even from employers, you know, and I've always felt it was really important for me to be honest about that because I saw how it impacted people.
I started in a class where we were really studying making a trans bridge, an interpsychic bridge to other sources of intelligence. And so it started in the context of that class.
See, I thought that all of these esoteric things were for older women over 40, and it would have nothing to do with men. So I was dragged to these two guys who channeled for me, and there was something, this was 3 years apart, they both told me the same thing. And that is when I had to start looking at how could guys 20 years apart in age, 3 years apart in ID, who never knew each other, give me information that was identical. And the information just happened to be that there was a master named Cryon who I was supposed to get a hold of.
He says the grand plan, the master's grand plan, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So we continued, you know, after we expressed ourselves that we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grand plan is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because he says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet, unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it. Due to the fact that the millions of the Earth people believe in people having an immortal soul, this is readily accepted. When the spirits will, through a trance medium, converse with influential people of the light.
Now, what is a trance medium?
It's a channeler today.
What is known today as a channeler?
Channeler, yeah. Shirley MacLaine's experience of getting involved with Spiritism and with the supposed inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies. I taped the whole thing in 3 hours.
And you were hearing the fulfillment of what this high priest had said 45 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So he went on explaining about the fact that the spirits will show themselves willing to give valuable guidance that will not only help people avoid the destruction of the planet, but it would cause them to enter into a higher state of existence. For instance, he said the spirits will promise, this is a big word, promise, that if their recommendations are followed carefully, they will usher in a glorious new age of peace and prosperity, and there'll be well, there'll be no more wars. See, there'll be no more famines. There'll be no more people getting unhappy with one another. Neighbors will love neighbor, and social unrest will not take place no more.
An arrangement, so to speak, was made prior to the physical life of the channel within what you would call the oversoul of the channel, of which I am also a part. We are part of the same soul. You might refer to me as the channel's future self, and incarnationally speaking, I would look at the channel as my past self, just to put it in linear terms.
We are not happy with the way that things exist currently in our reality. All right, we are from what you would perceive to be the future, and we have come back to our past so that we may learn, all right, and so that we may assist the planet, because what's going on now is going to impact the entire universe.
Well, we would prefer that you ask us, if you like. There's nothing in particular we would like to say, except that we're here, and it's very, very pleasant to be here. It's a delight. It's part of sharing with the big S, if you might say. The archetype of sharing is something we enjoy embodying.
I've had many, many lifetimes on Earth. I have deep love and compassion for humans because I remember what it was like to go through the things that humans are going through now. I remember the challenge in particular, the challenge of knowing at some deep level that you are a spiritual being.
Our goal is simply to help people live a more joyful, abundant life. And whatever it takes to achieve that, we're willing to do. And so that, in a nutshell, if you will, is our work.
You sit in the energy of a great shift. Many of you are feeling it. Maybe that's why you're watching this now. Maybe there's something that's happened in your life that would allow you for a moment just to open your mind and look inside something you always thought was untenable before, only reserved for those on the lunatic fringe before. And here you find instead wisdom pouring out. Perhaps you'll even feel the love of God pouring out.
There's a lot of things that are being transmuted and altered at this time. All right, you're finding some things out about some of your religious leaders. You're finding some things out about religion that just isn't holding true to you. It's not ringing true to you anymore.
Well, we want to tell you this, is that there is so much here that is hiding. But you must feel it. There has been such a shift in these last years, especially in the last 20 or so.
You're remembering who and what you are, and it doesn't need an intermediary.
This changeover from the old religious system that so many of you are familiar with is difficult, very difficult, because it holds on tightly. Those who have such a strong concept of God as some higher authority and is the only creator, they want to hang on to that dearly. They fear letting God go, their old God, you see, because they are so out of touch with themselves they can't possibly even contemplate what it's like to have to go inside.
They claimed to be distinctive entities. In other words, if they had a name, they would say their name. If they had a purpose or a distinctive, they would tell you that in many cases. But the the range would range from very what we call low-level life forms that really didn't seem to have any purpose except to be pranksters, that sort of thing, on up to through the sort of human range, right on up to the what you call ascended masters, the wise, benevolent, powerful type entities, and the antithesis of that, the evil, powerful, intelligent entities as well.
They claim to be ascended masters, highly advanced spirit beings even on other planets, people on various astral planes who had reincarnated and then gone on to perfection, Tibetan Buddhists, people from the past. I mean, there was an entire realm of things that they called themselves. However, the common thread was they were all spiritually pure and were contacting our little group specifically to help us evolve spiritually. There's no question in my mind now that they were demon spirits.
Warder often witnessed strange occurrences. He feared the darker controlling entities, one of whom regularly threatened him with knives. Still, he was fascinated by the spirit's powers.
One evening when I was over at Mike's place, we were just sitting talking when all of a sudden one of the entities popped in and became visibly angry with, I think, primarily myself, and began ranting and raving. I can't remember the exact words he was saying, but he got up and sort of stormed off into the kitchen. My habit being to always follow Mike into the kitchen or anywhere where there were knives present, and so I just followed, but I was very concerned with what was going on. As I got to the doorway of the kitchen, Mike, quote, Mike was standing and had picked up 2 Coke bottles off the counter, 2 26-ounce Coke bottles, and held them both out in front of him and crushed them simultaneously, one in each hand. Then, unfortunately, Mike, the entity left, and Mike was not able to come back right away. And in that delay time, Mike fell forward into the broken glass, cutting his, I don't know if his hands were cut at that moment or when he actually crushed the bottles, but they were cut fairly badly. He was obviously in shock when he came back. I got him up, moved to the couch in the living room, and again he was taken over, this time by another entity which seemed much gentler and more benevolent, and held out his hands in a very almost pathetic sort of way and said, "Do the wounds on my hands seem familiar to you?" And now we had an entity who was claiming to be or imitating Christ.
Then I would have believed entirely that they were higher beings, a higher spiritual order of beings. I wouldn't have believed in demons. I didn't think they existed. I thought they were an invention of the Christian church. In retrospect now, I can see back with horrible clarity that they were malevolent, created, demonic spirits intent on our destruction. In my own case, I recall that some of the entities we had to deal with were overtly violent, almost psychotic. And the others were pure and altruistic, and all they wanted to do was help us, and they would warn us about things that the nasty entities were doing, and they would give us teaching and methods of developing ourselves and so on. In retrospect, I'd like to say that all the entities were equally evil. It was the clever way it was presented by showing this group as overtly evil that made us more ready to accept these guys as the good guys. In reality, they were all in it together.
In evaluating the situation, the reason they appeared to be good or evil was to create a contrast and also to create further deception. You know, it was obviously that the whole thing was an incredible deception, but it would have had no credibility if it was obvious as a deception.
Obviously what spirits do is warp people's perception of what reality is about. And I think one of the difficult things is that you are really dealing with people who are being duped, is the best word I could say, and in that handing over of themselves to this power, in that handing over, they're going to see that as good stuff and not see that they are moving towards some very destructive things for themselves and for others.
Spirit channelers and mediums from all walks of life claim contact with the spirit realm. The purpose of this contact, supposedly, is to teach mankind to achieve a higher state of consciousness through the knowledge they present. A classic example is J.Z. Knight, a highly successful spirit channeler who channels a spirit calling itself Ramtha. Ramtha's School of Enlightenment claims to reach some 60 cities in 26 countries around the world. In this interview, shot in 1998, Knight explains how she came in contact with her guiding spirit.
This was like an angel in my kitchen. You don't have time to react. You don't have time to rationalize this in your life. This is happening in your little kitchen. I just blurted out, "You're so beautiful. Who are you?" And he smiled. This beautiful smile lit up the whole room, and he said, "I am Ramtha the Enlightened One, and I've come to help you over the ditch." And I looked back up at him, and he said, "Beloved daughter," he said, "I have come to make you a light to the world."
Equipped with a bad British accent, something that seems common among channelers, Knight gives herself over to the spirit of Ramtha.
I am Ramtha the Enlightened One. I am 35,362 1 and 37 seconds years old. I was born in that which is termed a great and marvelous place called Muria, and my destiny here is to teach you that which you desire to know, and to let you know that every word that I say I will manifest for you in your life.
Incredibly, throughout the interview, Ramtha and Knight repeat the central themes of the New Age movement over and over, insisting that there is no death and that man himself is a god, his only task being to realize his self-empowerment.
So I must become the teacher. I must plant in your mind outrageous concepts.
Here, Knight denies that Ramtha is a demon, but believes he was a man who has achieved divine status due to knowledge and experience.
He's not a devil. He's not a demon. He's not a guru. He's a god.
I am a teacher and a god. I'm a god because I experienced all of these things. And I am a teacher, not of truth, but of philosophy.
Ramtha insists that his teaching is simple, to get people to realize the great intelligence within themselves, and that they can do no wrong.
It's really simple. First you have to acknowledge that you are the great intelligence and it lives in you. And your body is an extension of that intelligence. And there is no good and bad in God. That's impossible.
As if echoing the voice of the serpent, Knight now directs the listener to the path of sacred knowledge.
We deserve to know the truth. And those who ask are going to be given everything, going to be given all the sacred knowledge.
We are not given but one lifetime to prove what we know. This is not a test. It is an opportunity.
Ramtha propagates the New Age lie that man has many opportunities to get it right through reincarnation and evolution.
Years ago, I would say that I'm relatively young to many of you who have been reincarnating and slowly evolving to ask the great questions, the great mysteries, to have them revealed here. My daughter is here simply to say, you're an immortal. You are wearing this body as if you wore a garment of silk or a garment of roughly hewn wool. You are here simply to wear the garment and to live the experience, but you have never died and never will. That is not in the plan of God.
Next, Knight and Ramtha deny that God is a person, but insist he is a natural life force that exists in everyone.
He saw what God really is. God is not a being. It is life itself. It's the will of life, and it's in everything. You want to help people, and you have to live your light, and you have to be proud that you accept if God lives, He is in me. And you are a righteous man for saying so. Because if He lives in you, then He lives in everyone.
Why cannot everyone share such a treasure? I love his message, Behold God. I love it that he says to us that we are divine. The journey of awakening is not through a redeemer, but when we realize we are our own redeemer. It is a lie, is a lie, what the fanatics tell you.
As with the rest of the movement, rejecting the gospel of Jesus Christ and the teaching of the church is essential to the message.
As long as we think that some channel, some channeled entity, some Christ, some priest, some preacher, some deity, some prophet is our Redeemer that excuses us from living life, we have missed the message.
Why don't we learn to think on our own and find new benefactors for that greatness? Genius, you know, it is that which is not mediocrity, is not predictable, is not funded, is not hired. It is that which can dream beyond the paradigms.
You have the ability to be a genius. And did you know that every dream that you dream should never be put aside as imagination? That every dream is the next step of your evolution. And Ramtha gives us permission. He first says, you are God. Now let's get about learning how to be that.
Religion is no longer sacred. Everyone questions the church. They should. Everyone questions the meaning of life, and everyone questions the direction that science has taken. And when you do that, it is an age of enlightenment. We cannot have enlightenment does not come on the heels of the Black Plague. No, that is not enlightenment. Enlightenment comes on the heels of plenty. Because only when you are gluttonous to everything and you question everything are you ripe to know what you have never known.
So forget about the past and live today on the wisdom, the virtue of what you've gained. You don't have to feel guilty about your life anymore. I would love someone to stand up and say, God doesn't live outside of you. God is you.
While J.Z. Knight is among the more successful mediums, she is certainly not alone. A nearly identical doctrine is preached from a series of channelers who believe they are in communication with extraterrestrial spirits from other planets and galaxies. Next, we are introduced to a woman who channels a spirit, calling itself Leah.
Hello, Philip. How are you today?
Very good, Leah. How are you?
Very fine, thank you. So, what is it that you wanted to know?
Where are you from?
I'm from Venus.
I don't think anybody's going to believe that you or anybody else could be from Venus. Could you explain to us how you could be when everybody knows it's uninhabitable?
They think it's uninhabitable because it is not inhabitable by physical life forms. We have bodies of light.
While Leah rambles on with fantastical ideas, she soon compels the audience toward global unity, a message found throughout the New Age movement.
And what occurs here on this planet will affect the rest of the universe. Can you, with all of your different ideas, all of your different races, come together as one planet and one people? We have dedicated millennia upon millennia to this idea. The earlier experiments with Pan and Lemuria and Atlantis were not successful. But this one will be.
Now the interviewer asks the woman to exchange spirits and to channel another spirit that calls itself the Tibetan. Tibet is an often referred to hotspot for New Age empowerment. Hitler's Nazi occultists went to Tibet thinking to find their ancient Aryan ancestors. Listen carefully to the Tibetan's message as he refers to the great I Am, the name God reveals in the Bible to describe himself.
I am the Tibetan, and I have come during this time continuum to discuss with you the idea of the only question in the universe. And that question is, what is? And the answer is, I am. For all things that are created, that were created, that shall be created, fall under the question, what is? And you, each and every one of you, are that answer, and that answer is I am. I am is also the name of the creator of this universe. That is all. I relinquish control to the entity, Leah.
As the entity Leah returns, she confirms the You Are God message and refers to the new race that will arise through the New Age movement. Most New Agers today do not realize that this new race is identical to the master race prophesied by Adolf Hitler, a race of so-called supermen who will be their own gods, having rejected the one true God of the Bible.
This new age is where there will be a race on this planet and throughout all galaxies. And the name of that race will be peace. It's been wonderful spending some time with you. As you take this little piece of information with you, know that you are never alone. You are all connected to the creative source of this universe. And nothing can stop that flow except your denial that you are God. We thank you. Good day.
This man channels a spirit calling itself Bashar, who seems to hold his audience spellbound as he tells them they are equal to the creator of the universe.
That you are all made in the image of the infinite creator, and what that means is you are all infinite creators. We thank you.
Jack Purcell has become one of the more popular channels, possessed by a spirit named Lazarus.
All right, fine. Well, indeed, a pleasure to be talking with you, and, well, shall we begin where you'd like to begin?
Lazarus tells the listener that God is already within man, and that if man wants to find God, he needs only to find himself.
Now, the problem here is people look out there, yes? They're looking all over the place as though God was somehow outside of them. It's within. Every spiritual reference, be it fundamental or be it avant-garde, speaks of that spirit within, and we would suggest here that it's there. And therefore, your task in this physical lifetime really isn't to find God, because God's everywhere. God is all that is everything. It's all over the place. Your task in any physical incarnation is to find yourself.
Jane Roberts was a New Age pioneer who channeled a spirit known as Seth. Roberts sold more than 1 million copies of her books and inspired many. In this vocal recording, we hear her channel the spirit of Seth.
I've said this many times. I say it 1,000,000 times. Here in this class and in my books. You form your reality. Then what is the you that forms this spectacular reality that you know? When will you be willing to admit the greatness that is within each of you and not cower and not say in this realm of reality it is not possible, but encounter the greatness within yourselves.
Clearly the main message that Seth is trying to say is that people are gods in training.